Hello, and welcome to Zap the Gender Pay Gap, the podcast series where we expose the elephant in the room. The elephant's name, the gender pay gap. I am coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee, located on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River. Nestled in the southwest corner of the state, Memphis is home to the blues, barbecue, and so much more. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker.
Thank you so very much for joining me for this episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Look for me on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and any other platform where you find your favorite podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a review too. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's March. There's still time to celebrate some amazing women and their accomplishments before the clock strikes 12 midnight. I cannot let this Women's History Month pass without spotlighting those who have and continue to work tirelessly to put a dent in this thing called the gender pay gap. My mission in life is to leave each person in place better than I found them. So on this podcast, I know no better way to do that than to one, expose this elephant in the room, to shine a spotlight on this thing that eats away at a woman's pay, affecting her overall well being. Number two, to disclose some previously unknown information, some pertinent facts about the impact that this elephant is making. Because if we let it stay, it just may eat us out of house and home. And then three, to dispose of this elephant as well as its effects by finding and fixing the pay gap, and to do so for every woman who will listen and who has the courage to act. It's March, spring has sprung, but unfortunately, the trapdoor on the gender pay gap swings wide open. Yes, a lot of progress has been made, but there's still more work to do. Let me give you a little bit of history. Women have been in the workplace for a long time, but the powers that be only started reporting pay data by gender in 1979, 45 years ago. At that time, the female to male earnings ratio was 62%. Okay, so now the accountant in me is speaking. If the female to male earnings ratio was 62%, what was the gap? Take 100 minus 62, and what do you get? You're correct, 38%. That means the gender pay gap in 1979 was 38%. Women earned, on average, 62 cents for every dollar men earned. That's a far cry from being even. Fast forward to today, and the female to male earnings ratio is 83%, according to a recent survey by PayScale. Now, if we do that simple exercise again, 100 minus 83 equals 17, which means the pay gap is 17%. Better, but still not equal. For 20 years, the stats have remained relatively unchanged. Based on my research, the ratio has been hovering between 80 and 83% since 2004. In other words, it has been stuck for 20 years. That's a long time. Now, have women made strides in closing the gap? Yes, 80% is a far cry from 62%, but it is still not equal. This difference costs women thousands and in some cases millions of dollars during their working years, and it follows them into retirement. From the very beginning, there are women who have been and continue to be fierce advocates for closing the gender pay gap. Their main goal, for women to get even when it comes to pay. They have exposed the elephant in the room, spoken truth to power, and showed women how to advocate for themselves. These women are history makers, game changers, and difference makers, women who have forged a path to close the gender pay gap. An interesting article written by Ellen Cranley highlighting 12 surprising women from history who paved the road to equal pay. She states that these women have contributed to the decades of pay parity's progress so far, many of whom you probably didn't learn about in school, and some who might surprise you. I will share just a few with you today. One such pioneer and history maker is attorney and political activist Florence Kennedy, who fought sexist and racist policies in and out of the workplace. She became one of Columbia Law School's first Black female graduates in 1951. Another advocate is Esther Peterson, who was presidential advisor to President John F. Kennedy. Her work was instrumental in passing the Equal Pay Act of 1963. And you know what? It's 51 years later, and women are still not even. Here's a name you may recognize. She's so famous, she's known by her first name. As Ellen states in her article, Beyonce was one of the first celebrities to use her star power to promote equal pay. She pulls this quote from Beyonce's interview with GQ. You know, equality is a myth, and for some reason, everyone accepts the fact that women don't make as much money as men do. I don't understand that, Beyonce said. Why do we have to take a back seat? Beyonce has also called for men to join in the push for equal pay, writing that unless women and men both say this is unacceptable, things will not change. Talk about things changing. Another woman putting a dent in the gender pay gap is Dr. Evelyn Murphy. I was first introduced to Dr. Murphy by Christopher Brennan, who I met on LinkedIn. He works with MIT Sloan School of Management. After listening to an episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap, Christopher reached out to me and said, about this information and a contact might interest you in terms of your gender pay gap work. In Massachusetts state government, he had worked under Dr. Murphy when she was State Secretary of Economic Affairs. Christopher said, she is well respected and a good advocate. So you know his message piqued my interest. And I just had to find out more about Dr. Murphy. And boy, was I glad I did. According to her bio, Dr. Evelyn Murphy is an American businesswoman and politician who was the 67th Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts from 1987 to 1991, being the first woman in the history of the state to hold a constitutional office. Evelyn Murphy is a PhD economist, founder and president of the Wage Project. The Wage Project is a nationwide grassroots activist organization dedicated to eliminating the gender wage gap. She is so invested in this work in closing the gender pay gap that she wrote a book about getting even. Dr. Murphy is the author of Getting Even: Why Women Don't Get Paid Like Men and What to Do About It. She serves as co-chair of the Boston Women's Workforce Council and conducts Work Smart salary negotiation workshops for working women throughout the United States. In addition, she facilitates Start Smart workshops on campuses for young women about to start their careers. Talk about showing women how to get even. Dr. Murphy is definitely a difference maker. She is the recipient of 11 honorary degrees, over 100 awards from federal, state, and community organizations. And get this, in her spare time, she has run the Boston Marathon many times and can be seen in the bleachers cheering for the Boston Red Sox. Dr. Murphy is very worthy of honor for her work, especially in closing the gender pay gap. According to Dr. Murphy, the gender wage gap still affects the daily life of women at every economic level, from cashier to CEO. Is it fair? No. Can it be stopped? Absolutely. Can women get even when it comes to pay? Emphatically, yes. Another trend that has the potential to reduce the pay gap and help women get even is increased pay transparency. The push for pay transparency has been growing over the last few years as state and local governments put into place laws mandating either salary information in job postings or a compensation range. States like California, New York, Washington, Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, Nevada, and Rhode Island, and as well as the District of Columbia. Now, according to a recent article in the Memphis Business Journal, a growing number of employers are posting salary ranges in their job ads. About 60% of organizations are publishing pay raise ranges in job postings in 2024. Now, that's up from 45% just a year ago. The increase is a result of a series of new legislation as well as pressure in recruiting new talent. It's also drawing questions from existing employees because organizations say that workers are asking more questions about pay. And 14% of those organizations said they've had employees quit because they saw ads with higher pay elsewhere. Now, get this, about 27% of the organizations surveyed said they do not address severely underpaid employees proactively. They only do so if the employee or their manager asks. Boy, I could not believe that. They don't actively address severely underpaid employees unless the employee or their manager asks. Now, what's the moral of this story? Why do I tell you all this? One, women have been advocating for equal pay for a long time, and they still are. Yet women have not gotten even when it comes to pay. Equal pay for equal work is an aspiration, not a reality for many women in the workplace. Number two, if you are underpaid, there's a very high likelihood that your boss or employer will not be coming to you. That means you will have to go to them. And then number three, my question to you is, what will it take for you to get even? Do you even know if you are trapped in the gender pay gap? Perhaps you're ready to take action to find out. If so, I can assist you with that. I am grateful I get to show women how to find and fix their pay gap. One of those women could be you. I'm opening up a few one-on-one coaching slots. If you're interested in setting up a call to find out if we are a good fit, message me. Go to gwendolynjtucker.com and click on contacts. A link is in the description box. You can reach out to me there. Women, you work hard for your money. I can show you how to take home all of it. It's time we get even. I do thank you so very much for joining me for this episode of my podcast. I truly appreciate you and your support. And a great big thank you to those who are making a dent in the gender pay gap, showing women how to get even when it comes to pay. If you like what you hear, please invite a woman in your world to listen in to. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you here next Wednesday at noon Central Standard Time for the next episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. Until then, please be well.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Zap the Gender Pay Gap. Please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow me wherever you get your favorite podcast. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.